40 years ago, we opened our doors with one mission in mind.
We'll be right back with the top 10 songs of 1983.
To sell quality American-made vehicles at a fair price.
You have arrived.
And we've loved every minute of the ride. Celebrating 40 years of Two Rivers Ford.
Good morning to everybody except the University of Tennessee men's basketball team. How we living? We got Friday energy. We got Ron Slay coming up in just about 18 minutes from now. Coach Mack a little later on, but we got no more Vols basketball, kids, on the men's side of things. Just a dreadful loss, 62-55 to the mighty Owls of Florida Atlantic in New York City last night. We're going to talk about it today. Your reaction to the way that the Vols got bounced. What did you make of it? 615-737-1045. We will be here with you until 1 o'clock, Lucas and myself. So we'll have plenty of time to discuss this thing from a variety of different angles. But I guess the place that I'd want to start, do you actually consider this to be a choke job? Because I think you can look at it and say, yes, to lose as the higher-seeded team, as a 5.5-point favorite, to squander an advantage that FAU was trying to give you in the first half because they had wide-open looks from three, and they were just missing. And to not find some kind of offensive momentum in the second half to combat that when, as you expected, FAU made a bit of a rally with their style of play, you could look at it and say, yeah, choke job. You could look at Rick Barnes and talk about the idea that they've had a certain level of success, but now FAU has as many Elite Eight appearances as does the University of Tennessee. Not ideal for a team and a program that just made the tournament for the second time in its history. I was reading some of the post-game stuff last night looking for quotes and things, Lucas, and they made this sound like the greatest victory in the history of Florida Atlantic athletics.
It probably is.
It's right? Definitely up there. Oh, I can't tell you the entire history of the FAU Owls, but I would say, at least in the world of college basketball, if this is only your second time making the tournament, you upset a 4 seed to go to the Elite Eight. You're cooking. You're one win away from the Final Four.
They never had a tournament win prior to this edition of the NCAA tournament.
That is correct.
This is as close to a national title, not to say FAU is going to win a national title, but it is as close to a national title, a couple games away in a revenue sport as any FAU sport has ever been to. So, yeah, I bet it is the best moment in their program's history.
Well, it's a pretty low moment for Tennessee. And listen, I'm not taking anything away from Florida Atlantic. That's a 30-plus win team, 34 wins on the season and on their way to the Elite Eight, very well deserved. And Tennessee felt like a very predictable ending to an uninspired second half of the season where you lose you go 7-8 down the stretch. And trying to, maintain your seeding after at one point being the second best team, second highest ranked team in the country in men's basketball. Lucas was looking up some numbers from their performance last night, and I guess at some point he stumbled across the box score from the exhibition game between Tennessee and Gonzaga, but a little different looking than what we've seen from the University of Tennessee, at least offensively. In the last couple of weeks at the start of the season.
Yeah, it's not a season low because Tennessee won that 46-43 rock fight against Auburn. That was their season. Only this team with their season low in points could still get a win. But I was trying to see just how many times Tennessee has scored 55 or less, and then I was distracted by the very first result in Tennessee's 99-80 exhibition win against Gonzaga, where a lot of starters played in that game. Drew Timme played in that game. And then you watch Gonzaga last night come back against UCLA, just going blow for blow all the way until the end, and they outlast UCLA to move on to the Elite Eight. Different story for Tennessee last night. Although not really, because it's pretty much been the story for them all season.
Right, that's the thing. Like, can it be, and that's, I guess, my larger point, can it be a choke job if we all felt it coming? I mean, what was the bulk of the discussion yesterday other than if Rick Barnes wins, is he the greatest basketball coach in the history of Tennessee basketball, which, of course, makes – not history of Tennessee basketball, men's basketball. Let me not get caught in an even bigger bleep storm. But, yeah, we spent about, half the show, hour and a half yesterday having some version, some variation of that conversation, and then –
And then what's the third submission in the YouTube chat this morning?
Fire Rick Barnes is how I was greeted when I sat down. I hadn't even had a sip of my coffee yet, and there's just an all caps Fire Rick Barnes across one of the 75 monitors in front of my face in here.
Look, this is the duality of man in the YouTube chat. As cousin Danny says, Barnes is a fantastic coach. Vols had a damn good season and made the Sweet 16 without their point guard. Immediately after that is Russell saying, as soon as things go wrong, buddy, things have been going wrong for Barnes' entire tenure.
Yes, let it burn.
I don't know. That sums up the Rick Barnes era right there. They had a great year, 25-plus wins, got to the second weekend, did it without their point guard, then the very next comment, and it's been terrible the whole time.
All right, so there's always, I mean, this is inescapable. The level of criticism when you're playing at a certain standard with a certain amount of visibility and programs of this caliber, which the University of Tennessee is, where there's a crazy, crazy fan base swirling around everything that you do athletically, and, you would like to see them not have the same kind of petering out endings that you're accustomed to. You just like some kind of wrinkle, some variation to the story. But it felt like this was the thing that we all knew was coming most. Now, it's easy to say that. We have the results in hand, and, we can spend an hour and a half talking about Rick Barnes' legacy and how great it is and best since Bruce Pearl, and then all of this come to a screeching halt because they get out-rebounded by a team that felt like they were half their size out there other than Golden, who's the FAU 7-footer. But I heard Will make this point this morning about the kind of rebounds that FAU was able to capitalize on, and I do think it made a lot of sense because it's not. I mean, they are a lesser team, FAU, and that doesn't necessarily matter in the tournament. But I guess if you would have talked about all the different ways that the University of Tennessee might go about losing this game, you didn't have them getting out-rebounded by a team like FAU, which is one of the smallest teams that was in the field this year. Rick Barnes, for his part of things, has 27 NCAA appearances with 4 different schools now. And he's reached the Elite Eight 3 times out of those 27. He's gone to 1 Final Four. but none of those things with Tennessee. So the way that these things pivot is that game very much felt like it was in control in the first half, even though this was not a team that was playing, I think, as the best version of themselves. And that was something that their coach, I don't want to say was quick to bring up last night in his post-game media availability, but it did seem that Rick Barnes noticed something about his team that didn't feel quite right. This was him last night after the game.
You know what? When you talk about games and substitution, we're around these guys so much, and we read their body language. We know where we feel like they are, and some of it has to do with that answer, not just on the offensive end, but it's the defensive end too. We had some breakdowns with certain players today that where we just felt like that they weren't locked in as much as they needed to be, and then some guys were in, arguably one of the biggest games of their lives, and you could just body language. We just didn't feel like they were locked in as much as we needed them to be. And you'd expect them to be, but it's a big stage.
Not as locked in as they needed them to be. Now, I didn't feel necessarily that way. Second half, things did start to deteriorate, but I looked at the opportunities that Tennessee had in the first half and the way that FAU was shooting at the time, which was poor. Looking at the way that they were getting out-rebounded, pretty substantially by the end of the first half, and it was interesting to hear the TBS crew, halftime crew discussing it. But the opportunities, the rebound opportunities that FAU was getting were, I guess, different than your average rebounds because they're coming from beyond the arc. They're coming from the perimeter. So it's not necessarily as easy for Euros when these rebounds are flying off from a greater distance to kind of corral these things or for them to try and rebound, but it's still no excuse. And the guard play by FAU, I think, was quick to kind of capitalize on that because they knew that their missed opportunities, should they miss from three as they were in the first half, it would be better for them to be able, or they would have a better advantage to clean that up because they've got the floor spaced already.
But Barnes, before that comment, was talking about a few things specifically they didn't do well that kind of led to that comment of why they weren't locked in and the body language. Tennessee was not establishing space down low where they had that advantage. And he talked about it. Their guards are hugging the perimeter. They're trying to close out all outside shots from Santiago Vescovi, from Josiah Jordan-James, and that's what they expected. And Uros Plavsic did some of that early on. He had 8-10 points in the first half. I thought we were going to have a Uros Plavsic legacy game for a few minutes there. And then it went away.
It went away very quickly, and then it resulted in how the Uros Plavsic experience usually goes, which is with a flagrant.
So Barnes talked about it. Uros, Olivier Comois were not establishing space down low. They were not utilizing that advantage the way that they needed to and the way that they prepared to going in. And then when they did start to do some of that in the second half, they didn't get those entry passes that they needed from Tennessee's guards. That combined with the missed shots that you saw from Tyreek Key, from Olivier Comois, who the last two games kind of perfectly encapsulate the Olivier Comois experience at Tennessee so far. Yeah, I think that's a perfectly fair statement that they're not locked in. When you look at the shots that they were missing, they were getting good shots consistently throughout the night. Yeah. And they finished shooting 33% from the floor. Just can't happen.
So Josiah Jordan-James was asked about this last night at his locker, or rather at the media availability after the fact. He said, obviously, we missed open shots. They missed open shots, but we were disappointed in the way that we played. We knew we had to play tougher, but we were up 5 points. And then apparently he just kind of trailed off. Now, what this means for Tennessee, like the offensive struggles we've talked about, but the idea that they went 6 minutes scoring 4 points, a total of 4 points in 6 minutes, is unacceptable, even as college basketball kind of lends itself to those offensive droughts from time to time. It can't look that way. And I think it was more noticeable than it had been really since right after the Zakai Ziegler injury, where they were really struggling to kind of orchestrate their offense, and Vescovi having difficulty even just bringing the ball up and having to create opportunities for himself, making a pass to get himself in another position to try and shoot from the perimeter and having to shoot themselves back into that game. We can talk about this with Slay. I don't know if he's going to be here. I don't know if he's going to be on the phone. I don't know if he's going to be on Zoom, but we can take your phone calls as well in reaction to the Vols losing in the Sweet 16, 62-55 to the FAU Owls last night. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. You're really leaning in this morning, huh? Welcome back to the show on this Friday. Sad eyes. That was what was waltzing out. Oh, God. You going through it back there, bud? Are you hurting today? Did this upset you? You seem to be handling it pretty well, other than, taking it out on your musical choices.
I just love the background singer in there.
just screaming at the top of his lungs.
No, I mean, it's unfortunate, but expected, right? I mean, not expected. You expected Tennessee to beat FAU, but not shocking.
I expected them to win that damn basketball game. Here's my thing. I'm so tired of coming in here and talking about underachieving sports teams. I'm sick of it.
Why did you move to Tennessee?
Yeah. Well, this was the only place that was willing to
Clearly, you had no idea what the sports landscape was before you got here.
Well, no, it was just down tremendous when I got here, and now they're just good enough to make you think, maybe. They've gotten close with a bunch of teams lately. The Preds a couple of years ago. Titans had a decent run. Now back to, where it seems we're coming back to the mean. And then there's the University of Tennessee, which tried to get up off the ground this year in football, did so spectacularly, and then just got kneecapped by South Carolina in ways that completely undermined their football season. And then the loss to FAU last night in ways that are both expected and just infuriating. That you have to continue to watch this team struggle the way that it does offensively in the biggest possible moments, especially going 7-8 down the stretch. Ron Slay of 3HL, the SEC Network, television's own, is here with us in studio. I guess, are we eulogizing today? How's morale over there? How you living? Hi, bud. It's great to see you.
What up, Buck?
Why are you sitting over there?
Cause I want to be able to see Pan too. I don't like having my back to Pan.
Now you know why I looked over.
Yeah, you got to keep an eye on them.
I need two walls to my back and to my side. I need to have a perimeter secured because there's not just one of them now. There's two.
Yeah, one over there in the shadows. You got to be able to peek when he would peek his head out. Well, same thing.
The red flash.
The red flash.
So what the hell,
man?
What do I do?
I'm gonna tell you, Buck. This is what I'm thinking. This is what I took from it. Microcosm. This is like
SAT words.
I just think that in this game, it was what it was. So when you're looking at it, FAU, what you didn't want them to do was be able to get offensive rebounds and get second chances and get open looks.
What did they get?
They got open looks the entire game, not just one half. They got it the entire game. They just missed shots early.
Squandering it in the first half.
Exactly. So those same looks, and you got to give Dusty May credit too. He said we trust our guys to play the way we like to play. If they're missing shots early, which they did in the first two games of the tournament, and at some point the numbers got to average out. You got to start making shots. They did it in the second half. A big thing was too, Jonell. Well, how you say his last name?
Jonell Davis.
Jonell Davis, when he got in foul trouble, that took a guy out of the game that could beat this guy one-on-one as far as penetrating and getting to the basket, making the defense collapse. You had to pay extra attention to him in the second half because he came out immediately, getting to the cup, making people get to the paint to help out, getting kickouts and things of that nature. So they just actually made shots. Whatever we saw from Tennessee, to be a defensive team, muck up the game, you can do that, you can win. You couldn't do that, you can't win. It was as simple as that because at some point you got to put the ball in the hole too if you're not stopping someone, and that's what happened.
But Slay, they still averaged out to less than 30% from three, FAU did.
Yeah,
you would have taken that any day, 8 threes from that team?
If you'd have looked at that after the fact, you'd have said Tennessee won that game because you took one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country against the best three-point shooting defense in the country, and you said you won.
Yep.
You won the matchup. And then as soon as they started creeping closer and closer towards that 60-point mark where we know that Tennessee needs to keep teams if they're going to win, it felt like they might get back in it after Josiah Jordan-James hit that three. I think it was 55-52 at the time, but that was like with 3 minutes left in the game, and that was as close as it felt like it was going to get, and FAU just pulled away.
It would have been a big one as well if Santi would have hit the one in the corner when it was 45-41. You make a 1-point lead.
Contested one?
Get a little tight. But I think, man, looking at the game, you talk about 30%. I love numbers, but I love when what you see with your eye test matches up to the numbers. So moments and impact of your scoring in the game. So it's okay. You shot 30%. But you hit 6 of them, what was it, 6 of them in the second half?
Yeah.
That's vital. You know what I'm saying? Especially when you got a team that's not scoring, so you can't pull away. I saw in the first half, at the end of the first half, I tweeted when they came out of the media timeout, the 4-minute media timeout. During this stretch, all Tennessee has to do, I think they were up 5 or 7. They should finish this half up double digits, but you got to be able to get to the foul line and steal some easy transition buckets. They wasn't able to do that. They cut the lead down. And you have what you have. Like the game's made of runs. And one thing about March Madness, underdog or favorite, if you're rolling, you're going to get the entire arena on your side. Regardless, I don't care if you're the big dog or like Gonzaga, UCLA. You saw it last night.
They ran the Vols fans out of there.
Yes, it did.
So much so that you could hear audibly on the television broadcast the FAU chants. And I know people in South Florida, Boca Raton, don't give a damn about college basketball until just this very moment. Like the idea that Miami and FAU are both in here with one of the most fair weather cities in all of sports, professional, college, or otherwise is hilarious to me.
Factual.
But, at this point, it's just so frustrating to continue to see it play out that way. And I mean, we felt like this was coming, Slay, and you want to be optimistic about your team. You want to wish for the best possible chance of success, but you also have to be grounded in reality.
Right.
And I think that was the case because, as you said, this is a game of runs, but the runs can't be 20-4 over the course of 6 bleeping minutes.
Yes. Yeah, you can't go scoreless or score 4 points in the last 12 minutes of each half either. So what you saying, Buck, you got to understand that's the most difficult part of it as a fan, to be able to stay grounded in reality. I have trouble with it as well. But when you look,
you're very rational.
When you're looking at it, though,
very even keel.
The reality, though, Buck, I'm a fan of also not moving the goalposts.
No, I'm with that.
So when we started the season, the entire thing was, man, this should be a Sweet 16 Elite 8 run team, without question. They started off fast. We were like, oh, wow. Man, they should be a Final Four team. Then you started to revert back. They lost a couple games. Man, maybe if they make it to the Sweet 16, then all of a sudden it was, man, they ain't getting out of the first round. So if you go back to the original goalpost, in the whole grand scheme of things, it was a successful season.
Oh, get the bleep out of here.
Reason being, let me tell you why.
No.
Let me tell you, if anytime you take a first team, not any guy, first team all SEC performer out of your lineup, you're done.
Okay.
If you look at Kansas State, when did Kansas State have trouble yesterday? They've been playing great all year. As soon as Noel went out, it was like, whoa.
Yeah.
What the hell is happening here? They still got an NBA guy. Keontae Johnson still on the wing.
We haven't gotten to that game yet. That was so much fun to watch. So much fun.
Dude, but that's the impact of a first team guy. You know what I'm saying? So you got to understand that that's not an excuse at all. Should they have gone further? Yes, they should have. But you got to give credit where credit is due, man. They played against a team that, I don't care if you win 33 games against me, you and Pan and the Red Flash out there, and we can add Kirby or somebody on our team.
You just lumped yourself in with all of us.
Y'all my guys.
That's me.
Y'all my guys, and we losing weight, but we look good.
No.
You're running the point. We're putting you in the corner, Pan.
You see how quickly he grabs the steering wheel? Any opportunity.
Yeah. Now we dishing you in the corner. Just be ready to knock it down, Pan. We don't need you handling the ball. You look like Meshack out there right now.
I will drive this car into a house.
See, when you get frustrated. But that's the thing, though.
Meshack and the free throws, too, at the end. Oh,
yeah.
my God.
It's
just
tough.
the little things like that all compound to make it feel.
That's what separates things, Buck. The details.
But I guess that's why I take such offense to you saying that on the whole, if you don't move the goalposts on the season, it is considered a 25-win season, another tournament appearance, a Sweet 16 appearance. On the whole, you would probably take that at the start of the year. But just the way that it looks so gross.
But can you tell me how many 25-win seasons Tennessee basketball had in its history before Rick Barnes?
How many do they have under Rick? Is it 4?
Yeah, how many?
4 out of 8 seasons?
Yeah. Tell me how many they had before Rick Barnes was hired.
I'll say 3.
Yep.
Was it 3?
It was 3.
Was I part of 2 of those? I believe so.
Believe you were.
Are you asking questions that you know the answer to?
Kind of. Yeah.
Slay for two. Bruce Pearl had another one. And,
I want to pat myself on the back a little bit right
very
now.
happy for you.
Yeah, appreciate that. But that's the thing, though, Buck. I just can't. I can't say once you get involved into it, you got to start. You should. And my thing is too with the Vol Nation, watching games. I am a fan of positivity. Now, I'm going to scold you.
You're on the wrong show.
No. But I'm going to scold you. Like, if you garbage, guess what? You garbage. And I'm going to call you that. You Nathaniel for a reason. You are Nathaniel. But at the same time, I don't need you watching the game to wait for something to happen. And that's what Vol Nation is. That's where they were with football. That's where they were with baseball. And you got to get out of that because it's just negative energy.
No, I know.
To say I knew it was going to happen. What do you mean you knew it was going to happen? Well, that means you can't say you knew they were going to win past the first round.
No, those. So I guess where we're at is I look at that as two different things, right? Where you're going in self-loathing a little bit because that's the way that you've been conditioned.
Yes, I agree. I'm with it.
It's BVS. Do we still? By the way, do we have that handy?
Yeah, I just don't want to. I just don't feel like pulling it up.
Yeah, don't pull it up. Man.
Okay. Well, that's a shame.
Let him wallow.
But there's a little. No, I'm fine. I'm not the problem here. Okay, I'm not the problem here. Just because I'm bitter about how the basketball season went on the whole. Bleep you. All right. I'm
cool
saying that there's a difference between going in with a degree of self-loathing and then coming out after the fact and being like, I knew it. They had no chance. But the difference between that and walking in and being like, okay, this is not the same team at this point in the season than it was at the start of the season.
Yes.
You have to understand that going in. Their strengths, their deficiencies, what it takes for them to win games, what do we consistently know about them, and where those inconsistencies crop up on a regular basis. And going and grounding in reality, saying if I had to pick any game out of the Sweet 16 prior to yesterday taking place, I would have looked at the FAU-Tennessee game as the likeliest upset because I know those deficiencies. Mm-hmm. I think those are two different ways to do the analysis. And, yeah, Vols fans tend to do the former.
I agree. I totally agree. I ain't got nothing to come back for that.
Ron, okay, good. Ron Slade, 3HL SEC Network, here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Vols lose last night in the Sweet 16. We could do some phone calls.
Oh, let's get it.
615-737-1045. Charlie is in Franklin up first. Hey, Charlie.
Hey, my friends, my day keeps getting better and better. You know, I'm a Kentucky alumni. I'm sorry, Ron Slade, but I'm glad you're on this call, my friend. Hey, congratulations to Florida Atlantic for making it as far as the most successful Tennessee basketball program in only their second appearance. But I have a serious question. Those stickers that Tennessee fans were wearing in Madison Square Gardens yesterday saying, "Where's Kentucky?" Can I get my hands on one of those? But serious question, though, guys. If you are an athletic director of a school and you have your choice, because it kind of humored me when Buck said that Tennessee fans are calling, you know, whether it's serious or not, for the firing of Rick Barnes. Wow. Coming from Kentucky, man, we would love to have a Rick Barnes talented coach right now. So as an athletic director of a school, would you prefer to have a perennial number one recruiting class with all the talent in the world with no game coach whatsoever like we currently have at Kentucky? Or would you rather have an above average recruiting class at Tennessee with a great game coach like Rick Barnes? Thanks, guys.
It's a fascinating question because, I mean, Cal, I don't know that Cal's a non-factor as an in-game coach, but he did get got a couple of times, and it's happened enough to where they're not able to out-talent people, and you can get into this Kentucky season in particular where they're leaning a lot on the transfer portal, it looked like, and those players weren't necessarily up to the standard I think that Kentucky fans have as far as the talent they have. But I do think that's a fascinating dynamic. I don't know how you feel about that, both as somebody who's been on the inside of one of those things and, you know, obviously on the outside now.
I take the latter. I just feel like the part of coaching that comes with it when you're able to get a not a number one recruiting class, but a above average recruiting class and develop guys in there and make the talent that you have right there mesh with each other. Give me that all day than over the number one recruiting class, because that's just as much of a headache as it is to try to get these guys to mesh and understand what you're trying to get them to do on the court as well. So it goes hand in hand. That's what makes a coach great. Now, I do believe Cal. I believe Cal is a great coach. Like it's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Does he?
That's a little battered cats.
Exactly. Like that's the thing, man. Like if you get those guys going, who you want to come get? Like who are you going to get to go fill that void that'll be left by Cal? Because at least one thing you do have, you have something to hang your hat on if you're a Kentucky fan. Now the difficult part is, the one and done thing is played out as of right now. But just in a minute, though, Buck, college basketball, college sports in general will be back, especially basketball, to where it was, because you won't have 25-year-old guys and super seniors. All that'll be gone. You still have the portal, but you won't have, like the guys last night, they were saying this is a sophomore and junior team. Dude, those guys already committed to their COVID year.
Yeah.
So those sophomores are really juniors. Like you, and that's what I said on 3HL. You're playing a veteran team in FAU. They ain't gonna be scared. They done seen this, and they played together. So
it's crazy how many college basketball squads had a roster older than a lot of NBA teams.
Very true.
You know what I'm saying?
Very
just
true.
Because this COVID eligible, and Tennessee's another one.
Yep.
In the coming year, they can run back a lot of.
They
these
sure
dudes.
could.
Not a single player that played for Kansas State yesterday started their college career at Kansas State.
Yeah.
That's
You
an
know what I'm
old
saying?
team that's been around.
And Marquise Noel is a kid that played at, I want to say it, Central Little Rock. I believe he played with my young fella Rue, who was from Nashville, and he was nowhere near this 2 years ago. Like he nowhere, same speed and everything, but so inconsistent. So it just shows what the change of atmosphere and a little bit of coaching, what it does, and maturity as well. So
Yeah, he's been in college basketball since 2018.
See what I'm saying?
At Little Rock.
See what I'm saying? You see what I'm saying?
Oh my God!
Like those guys right there, they're grown.
Yeah.
Like I can only I know what I was doing at 22. Like I know what I like. Well, you don't want to see me?
Yeah.
On the court or in the off the court facilities.
No,
you know?
you're not quite at your athletic peak there.
You know
but
what I'm saying?
Especially comparative to like
Come on, man.
18-year-olds.
Come on now.
And Tennessee can be old again next season.
Yeah, and there lies the problem a little bit. I'm not sure you want them to be old because of the young talent that you got sitting on the bench, which you do have.
Okay, because this I think is the fundamental kind of crossroads that I think Vols fans are going to have to come to, because I know there's a lot of likable figures and a lot of productive basketball players currently on this team. And you can go back and forth on polarizing figures like Urosh, and whether you want to sign up for an experience like that again, whether you want that in your life
experience.
or not. It's a roller coaster, baby. But kind of expand that, flesh that out a little bit, because I think a lot of people would probably default, with all things being equal, to having a more veteran team in the sport of college basketball today. In this particular situation, why might that not be in the best interest of Tennessee?
Because you don't get the experience of play for those guys on the bench to grow and mature. You only get better by having reps and experience in the game. You cannot simulate it in practice. You got some young talent over there. I believe, what is it, DJ Jefferson?
Freddie DeLone.
BJ
Edwards.
BJ Edwards. You got a lot of talent that can't get on the court just because the veterans in front of them know the system like the back of their head. You know what I'm saying? Back of their hand. You just can't tell them, Santi, you got to sit down and let this guy, DJ Jefferson, go in there. Like, why? What do you mean? He's going to show me what he's going to do when it gets tight. I don't know what I'm going to get from Jefferson, but the experience that he would get in the preseason and the non-conference games, you don't get, because you got these guys right here that's going to be a well-oiled machine.
It's a logjam.
Yeah, without question. But personally, I would love to see Josiah and Santi come back. That, coupled with Zakai, BJ Edwards get in there, DeLone, like
he's been there all year. He just wasn't eligible.
Right. So you got those guys able to get in there. I'm okay with Eros walking away. Let's go get some money. Or give me that veteran leadership in the locker room. You got to be willing to play another role. Yeah, it ain't on the court.
Other than the irritant.
Yeah, and that was cool while it lasted.
No,
it's over.
I love it.
Like, I'm all for that.
Until the flagrant.
First of all, they watching you. You can't do that.
Yeah. He doesn't seem to care.
No, because that's what he brings. That's his game.
No, I know.
That's
It's
the
one of
crazy
those things
part. That's his game.
You can't coach all of that kind of stuff out of it because
Right.
you don't want to completely extinguish the passion. Anyway, we got a lot more to talk about. We got phone calls to take on the Vols season coming to a screeching halt. You got another segment in you?
Man, I'm hanging with you all day, Buck.
All day. What, you trying to double dip today?
No, I'm just hanging with you.
I was about to say, it's coming out of Lucas's paycheck, not mine. Ron Slay's
Yeah,
here
look
with
at
us on 104.5. Well, we'll make him pay it back to you in Biscoff cookies.
Oh,
Because I
yes.
know he brought that in here.
He did bring some. Did
As
he
a-
eat all of them?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. There's a peace offering, and then he's in here every other commercial break stealing them back.
I paid my debts and then I ate them.
More Ron Slay here with us next. Welcome back. We got Big Friday energy. We got Big Ron Slay
Yeah.
hanging out here with us, putting a bow on the Tennessee Volunteers season. And also, it's nice to have an ally. It's nice to have support. I sit in here by myself. I'm isolated for 3 hours a day. Robert and Lucas, they sit back there. They make their jokes. They do a whole different show. And then when I ask them what they're doing back there, because I'm just trying to include everybody.
That's it. You're just trying to be a great Samaritan, Buck.
You want to tell what the audience what's going on back there? They just look at me and say, no, keep talking.
See? And guess what?
So
And this was, the funny thing is, I've always loved you, Buck. I think now that I look back on time, I think Pan has been trying to drive a wedge between us and our relationship for a while now.
Oh, it's every opportunity that he gets.
And that's interesting, Pan. I never ever guessed this.
Name one example.
Literally yesterday via text message.
What? There's plenty of examples, Pan, but I'd rather not call him to the
documents. I have receipts.
I'd rather not call him to the front. But
I would.
I would. Pan, my guy.
It's cheaper than therapy.
Pan's moved on from me, Buck. I was doing play-by-play and color commentary with Pan. Now he's going.
No, he's got a big. He's got a
I
big.
don't think
soccer
that's how
thing
that works.
now. No. We're talking. The adults are talking. He's got a big soccer thing now.
Yeah.
He's got no more time for you. He's tired of me just generally. So
Slay's partnered up with the great Tom Hartz and Roy Philpotts of the world.
You prepped me for him.
Yeah, I'll take it.
Prep me for him. Thank you, Pan.
all right, this is coming full circle. I don't want this. I need the division.
Yeah.
The division is better for me.
Pan knows what he's doing.
615-737-1045. T-Mac in Nashville up next to talk some balls. Hey, T-Mac.
Hey, fellas, how's it going?
What up, T-Mac?
Hey, good to have Big Slay on while I'm on. So, yeah, to your point, Buck, man, battered Vols syndrome is a real thing. We're just used to, getting kicked and, having bad luck happen to us. But I just don't get the Rick Barnes outrage. I don't get it. I'm an alumni, and the love affair with Pearl was, it's a real thing. But man, I mean, Rick Barnes has been the best coach that we've had. If you stack up the numbers and you stack up what he's done and the quality of our program that he's built, we didn't lose that game because of Rick Barnes. We were there because of Rick Barnes, and we lost the game because we couldn't make baskets and we didn't have enough scoring to compete with Florida Atlantic, who puts up 33s a night. And I think I thought that was a bad matchup coming in. And I was like, they are going to get hot at some point in the second half. There's no way they're going to continue to go cold. And I just don't feel like it's a Rick Barnes problem. I feel like, the tournament's a wild thing. People make shots. Teams go cold. They get hot. That's just kind of what it is.
Thanks for the call, T-Mac. What's a fair criticism of Rick Barnes? That was abrupt. What the hell?
Screw it.
I hit the button.
You know what? I think T-Mac is spot on. I think the problem with these last two tournament appearances, before I answer your question, Buck, you got a guy that you got one legitimate score on the floor, and that's Santi Vescovi.
If the offense is most reliable going through Urosh, the way that it was last night,
where it should have been a bonus.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That we should have took. When I saw that happen, I was like, oh my, this is our night. I can only imagine what's going to happen when they start kicking it out. But you couldn't see that, man. So once Santi gets stifled a little bit, you would expect other guys to step up and make those buckets, but those guys never emerged. The one that could do it was Zakai. The one that could do it before him was Kennedy. So you got to go get one or two more guys that can just put the ball in the hole, and I think you got that over there on the bench. But we don't get to see them because they don't know. I'm guessing they don't know the assignments that have been given and pay attention to the detail defensively. Forget offensive, defensively, that can keep them on the court.
Which is where the breakdowns absolutely cannot occur.
Yep. They can't. And that's where they occurred going to the shooting performance last night. That's what I meant to bring up. Communication was lacking. It was two guys rotating to one. Instead of one guy rotating, that's how you give up the open shots. But credit to FAU for moving the ball the way they did. But you got to be able to have guys. And as far as Rick Barnes goes, I mean, you got to tell me what you want.
Yeah.
I think that's where it lies first. Like, what do you want? What are we trying to get to? If this isn't enough anymore, then okay, then you got to show me who can get you to over the hump.
That's always my, I guess, response in these moments. All right, solution. Like, what is the solution?
Yeah.
Who is a better basketball coach? Are you going to go and do what Ole Miss just did, which is hire somebody who's, potentially deeply problematic in Chris Beard, because you're just desperate to win basketball games after the Kermit Davis experience kind of fell flat on its face. Like, Nate Oates doesn't just appear at Alabama. Like, that's something that he worked hard at Buffalo and in previous stops to earn the opportunity, and I don't think anybody had them being as competitive at this kind of a level as quickly as they were. So the Rick Barnes criticism is one thing, and I want to do fair criticism after losses like these, but also I don't see anybody coming to me with feasible solutions.
And you know what I'm not a fan of also, Buck? Mid-major guys doing it one time, if that makes sense. Like, I would love to see Dusty May go and do this again. And it's got, like, capitalize on what you just did, though. Go get your money, without question.
No, I'm with you.
But can you do Kermit? He showed he could do it over and over at MTSU. So, okay, let me pluck him and see what he can do in this on the Power 5
Dunk
conference.
City coach that went to USC? That's one of the examples of, like, guy who did it for us, a tournament run, and then things kind of petered out after the fact. I can't remember the
We're going to
name.
see with Todd Golden at Florida. He came from San Francisco. Like, he had them rolling. Well-oiled machine, kept doing it year after year. So now we'll get to see him do it in Florida. But you got to be to me, and this is me, got to be proven before you just go diving in market, man.
Games on the board tonight. Alabama's playing. They've got San Diego State, Miami, and Houston, Xavier, and Texas. Which is the most interesting matchup to you?
I would have to say, man, as funny as this could be, Creighton and Princeton.
Okay.
I think that's one, especially from a betting standpoint. Xavier in Texas is the one I got circled to watch.
Are we getting bonus betting analysis
from I'm just saying,
Superbook
man.
Sports' own Ron Slay?
I'm just saying, man. If it's out there, I got to throw it out there. I'm interested to see if Princeton can, kind of like FAU, can they do what they've been doing? Can they shoot the ball at a high clip like this? Can they keep getting open looks?
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see. Creighton is a defensive team, but they can score as well. So going to be an interesting matchup. But Texas and Xavier, that's the one. That's the one I'm looking at.
What's on 3HL today?
Trash Talk Friday.
Okay.
And me, we're off at 5:30 today too, by the way. But outside of that, just talking about this.
Well, don't tell people what time to tune out. Tell people what to tune in for.
Yeah, that's why I want to host the show, Buck.
Okay.
I'm an addition. I'm an addition.
He's the jazz hands, baby.
Just watch me work. But guess what? I will be addressing Vol Nation today.
Yeah.
And this Battle Vol syndrome. Like, enough is enough.
State of the Vols at 3 p.m. with the 3HL crew, Ron Slay,
so good.
Alongside. More than just the sidecar.
I couldn't fit in there anyway.
The whole shebang.
That's the type of place Pan would try to put me. In the sidecar instead of him getting in the sidecar where he can fit.
I stopped fighting the sidecar thing a long time ago. And it's just a matter of, can I win the day?
I'd much rather be in the sidecar.
Oh, would you?
Yeah, because
so Buck comes out the house, jumps on the motorcycle, you just already sitting there with your helmet on.
Yeah,
no, he's been there for an hour and he's already ready and he's very prepared.
I just want to go along for the ride.
I show up bleary-eyed and stumbling through the door, and then we go on a roller coaster ride for 3 hours. You can sit in the sidecar with us, Slay.
Thank you.
All right. We will get into some Titan stuff. The possibility of a wide receiver at 11. Mike Vrabel and an entire Titans contingent at the Ohio State Pro Day. We'll tell you what they were looking for, and you'll hear from the head coach coming up next.
It is 11:02. Good morning from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Tennessee held FAU to 22 first-half points and led at the break, but surrendered a 20-4 run and allowed 40 second-half points from the Owls in a 62-55 loss to FAU in the Sweet 16 on Thursday. The Vols season ends at 25-11. FAU moves on to the Elite Eight for the first time to face Kansas State, who beat Michigan State in an overtime thriller last night, 98-93. Marquise Noel, 20 points and an NCAA record 19 assists for Kansas State. Elsewhere, Arkansas eliminated by UConn in a rout, 88-65, and Gonzaga outlasted UCLA with late dramatics, winning 79-76. The Preds survived a penalty shootout win over the Kraken at Bridgestone Arena Thursday. UC Saros was 27 saves on the night. Preds are 5 points back of a playoff spot in the West. They will host the Kraken again tomorrow afternoon, a 1 p.m. puck drop. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
Second down on a Friday. Welcome into 104.5 The Zone. Welcome back. If you've been hanging out with us so far, very happy to have you guys. Appreciate Ron Slay for spending the first hour with us. Coach Mack will be here in 15 minutes, and we got a lot of prospect discussion to have. Pro days going on around the college campuses in the football world. Kentucky, notably today, Will Levis is expected to begin throwing right about the time that we're on the air, bud. So maybe you sign up for your NFL Plus subscription and you can watch the Kentucky quarterback throw routes on air. Does that excite you?
Already did.
Already signed up for your NFL Plus subscription, I see. Excellent work by you. 615-737-1045. Join us at any point if you would like. So Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon reportedly, among others, of the Titans contingent, they're in Lexington today. Now, Levis is obviously the main attraction, but there will be some other players. I don't think Kentucky's got another name brand draftable player that is going to be performing at this pro day, right? It's mostly guys who are getting ready to graduate and declared for the draft, trying to go in as UDFAs, it seems like.
Well, Chris Rodriguez Jr. is one of this deep list of running backs, but I'm not sure how he kind of projects.
Well, he was at the Senior Bowl, and he wasn't really he wasn't one that I guess popped among a lot of different guys who were out there. You know, the likes of Eric Gray or the Coastal Carolina running back. All these different players at a very crowded position group that's got one clear and obvious top with Bijan Robinson, probably the only first-round running back this year, almost certainly the only first-round running back this year. Jahmyr Gibbs, and then basically everybody else who can serve a variety of different roles. But Levis is definitely there, or the thing that people are probably most interested in watching at this point. So as they make the pro day circuit, we've talked a lot about how things may have adjusted the strategy for the Titans at 11, where there may not necessarily be as dire a need to draft specifically for need, and how you may have a little more wiggle room now to go best player available if that's the route that you choose, depending on how the draft board breaks out. So we're going to talk a little bit about a wide receiver at 11 overall here in just a second, but we'll go to the phones first. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. Dave in Spring Hill wants to talk specifically about Will Levis. Hey, Dave.
Hey, guys. How are y'all doing?
Good.
Good. No, I think that Will Levis is way overrated. If he was so great, why didn't Kentucky do better this year?
Well, I appreciate the call. Now, his strengths and weaknesses, he's definitely got the deep ball accuracy. He's definitely got the arm strength. His decision-making is what I think most people are questioning at this point, specifically around Will Levis when you watch him on tape. The turnovers this year were particularly bad. Now, again, as these things start to come out, there's injuries that apparently Will Levis has played through throughout the course of the season, substantial enough that, it's been reported and discussed that an injury like the one Will Levis played through may cost a lot of people or have a lot of people sit down for the rest of a season. But this guy is obviously somebody playing with his draft stock in mind and didn't ultimately help himself from junior to senior seasons. If he's so great, why didn't Kentucky do better? Well, Kentucky had a lot of different issues this year. Kentucky lost a lot of talent from 21 to 22. Levis playing hurt. And, it just really didn't gel. The SEC East was, I think, more cannibalistic this year, it felt like, with teams like South Carolina and Vanderbilt coming on later in the year, causing problems for some teams. And, Kentucky having a standard that it's established for itself as of late. But I think that Levis could go on to have a very successful pro career. He could go on to be a terrible first-round pick. I have no idea. It depends on where he goes and what's around him and whether that's a stable organization or not. So to do the whole, if he's so great then, yeah, okay, fine. But I think a great many players have the opportunity to be great or be terrible, depending on just where it is that they go geographically. It's a really difficult part about the draft evaluation process, and Levis obviously has high-level traits which are going to attract NFL teams to him. It's why he's discussed almost by consensus as a first-round pick this year. But Mike Vrabel and Rand Carthon, they've been making the pro day rounds, and Ohio State was one that we knew they were going to stop at, and that there would be a large contingent of people at, but because there's a couple of different players, C.J. Stroud not least among them, that are going to go potentially on day one, whether that's Paris Johnson Jr., the tackle, or Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver. Carthon and Vrabel at Ohio State together on Wednesday. Carthon went to Alabama yesterday. Vrabel was at Cincinnati, and then they're back together today in Lexington. Now, Jackson Smith-Njigba was somebody who didn't run at the combine and was set to run, did run the 40-yard dash in particular at his pro day. The speed question, however you wanted it answered around him in the 40-yard dash, he did run. He solidified the scouting report on him, it felt like. 4.53 is what he was clocked at. Ian Rappaport reported that others had him at the 4.48, 4.52 range, so a little variance there. But the unofficial time of 4.53 is what he had at the pro day. Now, the idea of taking a wide receiver 11th overall this year, how does that kind of sit with you? Because this is not the draft necessarily where that would seem like a good idea unless you felt like there was a run getting ready to start. You couldn't move out necessarily while still getting the player that you wanted. You get put in a little bit of a Corey Davis type box where you have 5 overall. Corey Davis is not the 5th overall player or the 5th best player in the draft, but you have desperate needs for wide receiver that year, and you can't get anybody to trade out in a place where you might still be able to get him. So you take Corey Davis, you overdraft him at 5, and then, he's got to live with the stigma of what it is to not have lived up to the pedigree of a top 5 overall draft pick. This is a similar kind of draft that way, wide receiver-wise. Now, Jackson Smith-Njigba could go on to be a very successful professional wide receiver. He's got a lot of the traits that would indicate that he's going to do so, and he's going to be a first-round pick in all likelihood. I think it seems that he is more than Quentin Johnson. I think he is trending towards being the best wide receiver or viewed as the best overall wide receiver in this draft class, yeah?
Is Quentin Johnston really even in that conversation?
the traits of the thing. I mean, it's almost I don't want to compare it to Anthony Richardson outright, but it's a similar kind of parallel where the traits are all over the place. The physical gifts are something that you cannot find, and you hope that you can workshop through things like drops, which are not easy to do.
But the knock on him too is he doesn't utilize those traits.
Well, yeah, but the coaching staff,
consistently,
if you are a competitive coaching staff in the NFL, and you got a little ego about you, and you say, but once we get him in our program, he'll be great. And that's how you sell it if you're an area scout banging on the table in your draft meetings, in your meetings pre-draft with your executives who may not have necessarily been assigned to that particular region, although a prospect like Quinn Johnson's going to get a fair amount of scrutiny. Most general managers are going to know who he is and have seen his tape a fair amount by the time he gets to the part of the discussion. But yeah, that I think is the thing that's kind of the balancing point, right? Depends on the staff. People are going to look at Anthony Richardson and be like, can you imagine what he'll be once we get a hold of him? And that's just the competitive nature of football coaches, I think, that comes into play there, that you can't account for, right?
Gets people fired sometimes.
Oh, sure. But people get fired all the time because they think they can fix it, right? Caleb Farley. Oh, he's got potential all over the place, even though he's really not played a lot of corner. He's just kind of recently gotten there to that position. And he's got a bit of a back thing. But you know what? 22, it's too good to pass up on. And then completely non-factor by the time it's all said and done thus far. We'll see. But Mike Vrabel was at his alma mater, obviously, and there at the Pro Day, a local news reporter. Kellyanne Stitz, I believe is the reporter's name, caught up with him, and this was the Titans head coach.
How is it being back in Columbus and your old stomping ground?
Love being back in Columbus. Love Ohio State. Love everything about this place. Love the people. Not only in my time, but since I've been there, that have come into our league and coaches and support staff. So a lot of love here.
When you come to Pro Day, how do you evaluate the players when you're looking for something specific?
Well, I mean, I think it's just a total package. It's, what are they able to, how are they able to perform on, with a lot of pressure under them and people watching and cameras and their interactions with players and ultimately, the things they do in the workout.
Is there anybody specifically you were coming here to check out in person?
All of them. Anybody that can help us.
Looking at your guys' situation at wide receiver, is Jackson Smith and Jigba somebody you're looking at to help complement Traylon Burks?
Of course. I mean, I think we're looking for guys that can get open, that catch the ball, that can do things after it, that can create separation. Absolutely.
What impresses you about Jackson?
Well, I mean, I think this ability to work inside. I think he's got some ability to work outside. So just early on in the evaluation process.
So that's Mike Vrabel, dodging and weaving as he gets asked questions about specific prospects. All of them. Anybody who could help us. And by the way, that should be the approach. But we know that the tackle and the wide receiver are the most likely. Whether the tackle is there or not is the question, because it seems like Paris Johnson Jr. is trending towards being the top tackle in the draft, where there's more conversation about Peter Skoronski out of Northwestern playing guard as much as there appears to be interest in him playing tackle at the next level. Coach Mack is going to join us coming up next. We'll talk about the evaluations that take place at Pro Day, how they differ from Combine, certainly some prospect discussion as well. Your phone calls too. 615-737-1045 is how you join. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone. Welcome back to the show on this Friday. Music means Coach Mack. Man in Black will join us here in just a second. As always, he is presented by the wonderful folks at Farm Bureau Health Plans. They've been protecting Tennesseans for 75 years. Farm Bureau Health Plans will get you right and keep you covered. Pro days going on around the NFL. We're going to talk to Coach Mack about the difference in what NFL coaching staffs and personnel groups are looking for, specifically at pro days that differs from the combine, and talk a little bit more specifically about some prospects who are starting to get those pro days underway. You can jump in if you like. 615-737-1045 is the number with your Titans questions. As Mike Vrabel, Rand Carthon, and a cast of, 5 or 6 other people make their rounds at these various pro days. Kentucky going on right now. Will Levis is going to throw in about an hour, so I'm sure we'll start to see some tweets and social media videos coming out after that. Mac is here with us on 104.5 The Zone, as we mentioned, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. Hey, buddy.
Buck, what's going on, man?
Not much. Just taking in some of these pro days on the television here in the studio and keeping an eye on some interesting prospects that I know we're going to spend a lot of time talking about in the lead up to the draft.
Yeah, well, this is what it is now. We've got a lot of time to talk about it. What I'll usually do is once these things start forming out, I'll call people that I want to find out what's going on at those workouts. A lot of it's a formality. A lot of it is the important part is, I know that that when you go there and you've got people in mind that you'll sit down and have dinner with them, the night before. You can do a lot of board work with people there at these types of things, because there's really no time limit on it, unless there's a time limit on you trying to get somewhere else, for the another workout going on someplace else. But most everybody splits up pretty good. But this again, Buck, just another part of the piecing it together, and so it's interesting. Some of the things, it's a little bit of you kind of know. Who these guys are now. Now it's getting to really zero in on it and figure out, really who's who. And still, you don't quite know what's going to flesh out, because, as you well know, you've kept up with it for a while now. There's going to be some moves that are going to start being made now as far as at these things too, Buck. This is a lot like what goes on at the combine. You can start talking about, some draft day things you might want to be doing with other teams.
So, I guess for the audience, Mac, is that the biggest difference between combine, what coaches and executives are there to consume, scouts as well, and everybody coming together in Indianapolis to do these things? You can't be every place at once, so you got to divide and conquer at these pro days. But I guess is that more specific approach the biggest difference between what an NFL coaching staff will be able to accomplish when they're down at these individual pro days?
Yeah, you make a plan. Once you come back from the combine, you have your plan made out, and some of it, it finalizes a little bit about who you want to go see and who you want to go see them. That's a big part of it too. Like the Panthers. The Panthers had a big contingent, at Ohio State, as did the Titans. There's some schools that have enough players that you'll take a pretty good sized contingent. And then a lot of it too, Buck, depends on, we used to load up the private plane and depending on, how these schools would space out these workouts, especially in the geographical areas, you might be able to make 2 a day and then, then stay out a while. A lot of it depends on how the pro days are worked out. But to answer your question, yes, you make a very specific plan when you come back from the combine, and even before the combine, you start to figure out how you want to go and who you want to send. So it's all a big part of an interlocking puzzle that you start to try to work out. And sometimes because of weather, or sometimes because somebody may not say they're going to work out and they may change it to a later date. It's all a fluid thing right now, but it's pretty much going to wind up going down to the same thing. You've got to make a decision pointing towards draft day. That's what this is about.
Coach Dave McGinnis of Titans Radio is here with us on a Friday, as is the custom at this time, presented by Farm Bureau Health Plans. They make all of the great Titans radio and TennesseeTitans.com media coverage available for you as well. Farm Bureau Health Plans is the spot for you. Mac, with everything that the Titans have, in front of them still yet to do and decisions around draft day, how much of the burden has been kind of alleviated with how much work they were able to do across the board with the free agency signings? I don't think you and I, because either I've been on vacation or we had an abbreviated schedule the last couple of weeks, I don't think you and I have necessarily talked about the acquisitions that they've made, and given that they're so varied across a couple of different positions where they may be able to get some starting quality players.
Well, I think that's a good point that you make. It was varied, and I think it was varied, across the positions out of necessity. This football team has some areas that they had to start being able to fill in because of the number of people that they released, because of where they were against the salary cap and still are. But you have to be able to find, because you're going to have to be able to find players to fit these positions. Not necessarily they have to be a piece of it. And plus, with where they are cap-wise, I know you're very much up on this stuff, is that you've got to be very careful, because the thing that you can't do, what Rand and what Mike Vrabel are doing now is they're going in and filling in some positions that they were vacant in, but they have to be able to do it pretty, judiciously, because you don't want to get right back in the middle of cap jail again. And cap jail can be a very, very real thing. I've experienced it 3 times personally in my coaching career, out of necessity, trying to keep a team together, and then sooner or later, that credit card comes due. And so they're having to do it very, very, carefully planned out. And you got to look across the landscape and decide who's going to fit, what you want to do. It's not necessarily going to be, somebody that might fit somebody else, but you've got to be able to start piecing that together, because clearly you can't fill all of those spots with just 6 spots in the draft, right? It's part of it, but they've done it. They've done a job of, we knew the offensive line that needed to be attacked. They've attacked, the linebacker spot, a little bit. They got a cornerback back in there. The thing that you have to be able to do, though, is still put it in perspective. It's not saying these guys that they are bringing in are going to be all of the brand new team. They're going to be a part of it, but there's still some more free agency to go, in my humble opinion. Now you've got to decide, and as the prospects start to thin out, you cannot, where you are. Again, I've been through things like this when you've been up against the cap because you've had a good team, and all of a sudden, just as the nature of the National Football League, it all comes due. And so you've got to be able to do it financially responsible. Just like when you go out at night, Buck, I know you're financially responsible.
Listen, speaking of responsibility, all right, Coach Mack got me out here in the streets last weekend trying to get me in trouble, but we'll save that conversation for another day. Yes, fiscal responsibility is at the forefront anytime that, we're out in the streets. But, in a situation like this, Mac, fairly or unfairly, you almost get put in a spot where if you're Rand and the staff that around him, the support staff around him that is helping him to make the right fiscal decisions and clearing this cap, you're paying for the sins of others, and at that point, everything is on the table. Now, the things that have been reported and not necessarily confirmed or commented on by the team, we don't necessarily have to get into that. But I think when people see the Adam Schefter report about them asking Kevin Byard, again, reportedly, to take a pay cut, there has to be an understanding from the fan base that when they're in the financial position like this that they're in, that just about everything has to be on the table.
Well, you're trying to put together. You're trying to recalibrate a team that had 6 straight winning seasons, but also you've got some big contracts, some that you've redone and pushed forward. You can't. People, I know that. Your listeners to this, and the people that I talk to that listen to this radio station about Titans football. When I'm out talking with them, they're intelligent. Listeners, they understand. But for those that just have a very surface view of it, the salary cap is not just some nebulous thing that you talk about and throw around that you can stir around and move around and never have final consequences to. It comes due. And when it does, you reach a certain point as to where you've got to make decisions so that you can continue to operate, at a level. Look, it's easy if you're going to be a 2 or 3 win team, like some of these teams are for quite a long time, and are able to accumulate top 5 picks in every round of a draft for 2 and 3 years in a row. And then all of a sudden, I mean, you're picking in the top of the draft for every round, Buck, for a long time. Sooner or later, you're going to hit some of those spots on the dartboard. It gets extremely hard as you start moving down the draft board and winning games in the fact, during that course. Titans have had 6 winning seasons in a row, which is not easy to do in this league. Now, have we won the Super Bowl yet in the last 6? No, we have not. But you've got to try to keep your team competitive while you're doing that. But it comes a time when, the price has to be paid. Now, as you said, and I'm glad you said it before we got to talking about this, you can't substantiate anything that's been said until it's happened. But once you come into it, and look, all of this stuff I'm sure was discussed with all of the candidates when they were interviewing for this job as a general manager, as to the point in time where this team is, with a club that expects to be extremely competitive, but at the same time understands the reality of where they are now with the salary cap and how to work yourself out of it.
Coach Dave McGinnis is here with us on 104.5 The Zone. Mac, you preach it every time you're asked about it, or every time it comes up in conversation, the idea you can never have too many pass rushers, too many corners on a defensive roster. Sean Murphy-Bunting was an interesting addition that I just to kind of pivot here back to some free agent stuff. Sean Murphy-Bunting on a 1-year deal makes so much sense for this team, and I think the versatility that he brings, because you'll correct me if I'm wrong on this, but it looks like he can play both inside and out, which gives them a little wiggle room as far as the different kind of combinations that they might have out there.
Yeah, at this point in time, you make a very. I mean, you're 100% correct. I mean, I went back and looked once they get the guys signed. I don't start looking, on conjecture until they get them signed. Then I'll go back and I'll pull all of my notebooks from the draft to find the guys that they've brought in right now. I mean, it goes back to the 2017 draft, so that's not very many notebooks back from me. But Sean Murphy-Bunting out of Central Michigan came out in the 2019 draft, and he was a 2nd-round pick out of Central Michigan, a smaller school. But I pulled my combine stuff on him in my notes, 6 foot and 3/8, which is, 6 feet and a half, 195 pounds. The thing that stood out about him, though, of course, just physically, when you watch him after watching some tape on him, I mean, legitimate 4.42 and a 41.5 vertical jumper and a 10.6 broad jumper, but he's got football production, and he's had football production in this league in big moments. And so the point that you make that at this juncture, this makes perfect sense right now, and you're completely correct. He can play inside or outside, so he will be a piece of that. And as you well know, what happened with the secondary last year, especially with the cover people, they kept falling by the wayside, and you keep bringing people in off the street. Sooner or later, they're going to start finding you with those guys. So Sean Murphy-Bunting, as you said, he's 25 years old, and he fits perfectly the type of person that they're trying to seek out at this moment in time to build this roster.
He's Coach Dave McGinnis. He's the best in the business. The official Titans podcast, the OTP. Subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. The Titans Amy and Coach Mac podcast, and all the great stuff that they're producing digitally at TennesseeTitans.com. Mac, great to see you last weekend. Great to see Hutt and Lehman and the whole squad. I hope you guys had a great rest of your afternoon. Even if you had me out here risking it all, I still love you. I appreciate you spending some time.
Buck, you know what? I knew exactly that when we put up the bat signal, you'd show up. So there we were.
Well, the motivations are questionable, but if the bat signal is up, we'll find a way. Thanks for hanging out, buddy. I'll talk to you soon.
See you.
That's Coach Mac with us on 104.5 The Zone. I feel is Coach Mac, like, if Coach Mac gives you a bat signal, are you obligated to show up? Like, is that one where they're just, it doesn't matter what you're in the middle of doing, it doesn't matter what's going on in your life, you have to pick up wherever it is that you're at and show up to where Coach Mac is, sending out the bat signal from?
Yeah, I think there's very few people in your phone. Like, everybody probably has maybe 4 to 5 people in their contacts that when they see that light up.
That many, you think? 4 to 5? I'm talking about it. This is an exclusivity kind of like category. Like I'm maybe thinking there's 3 people in my phone, maybe 3.
Yeah.
Including, close personal friends and family members, like maybe 3 that I would show up for no matter what happened.
Yeah. If Coach Mack is one of those people, I think I agree. You have to show up.
Okay. Well, hopefully he will, hopefully it's not. Anyway, we had a great time. It was good to see Mac. Always a pleasure. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in on the discussion. So with the moves made and, the way that we've talked about the burden kind of being alleviated on them in the first round, does that allow you the opportunity to get a little more creative with some of your personnel decisions in this upcoming draft? And as Max said, free agency isn't done. Wednesday is technically Wednesday at 3 o'clock. This Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central Time was basically like a week of free agency. So there's still so many different kinds of players are out there. But Lucas said that there was a wide receiver signing by an AFC team that was noticeable. Who is in the wide receiver market, or who's just recently acquired a wide receiver, Lucas?
Another free agent off the board, Nelson Aguilar, will be a Baltimore Ravens. Jordan Schultz had it, and the deal is 1 year, $3.25 million. That's not including incentives, of course.
All right, so Mecole Hardman is going for 6. I think Jacoby Myers is the biggest contract of the free agents that we've seen handed out thus far, and I think that's under $12 million on an average annual basis for Jacoby Myers to go play in Vegas. The wide receiver money is nowhere, it's not even sniffing what last year's free agency was. Now, last year's free agency also got convoluted by guys like Tyreek Hill and A.J. Brown getting moved and getting big contracts on the back end. Devontae Adams the same. Not necessarily free agent deals being done, but trade and then sign, I guess, as opposed to a sign and trade that you had kind of making that seem far more inflated than it actually is. So you see these wide receiver deals coming off the board, $6 million here, $3.5 million there, and you say, why haven't the Titans done anything in this veteran market? Now, I'm not clamoring for them to sign Nelson Aguilar, but you get my larger point. The plan there has to become concrete sooner rather than later. They don't have any kind of great pressure on them, given the names that are left, but they do have to make the right decision there because there is still a great need for a veteran presence in that wide receiver room where the most veteran person, technically, is Nick Westbrook-Akina. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. We'll get into that, and we'll also talk about some of the other Sweet 16 games that are going on with the Vols getting eliminated last night. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. So the Vols are out in the Sweet 16, but there's still basketball going on. We'll talk about some of the most exciting matchups left on the board and talk about the other 3 games that took place last night as well. We'll do that in just a little bit. But we've been talking about wide receivers coming off the free agent market. What's the Titans' plan at the skill positions as you see it right now? May not be evident. There hasn't been anything movement-wise that would indicate one way or the other what they kind of are looking for in skill position players under Rand Carthon, other than what we have in known commodities on the roster and then the retention of NWI on a 1-year deal. How they go about this, there's any variety of ways that they can do so, but something has to be done. And while you sit there in the ether kind of waiting to figure it out, these contracts continue to come off the board. So what is the plan for the Titans at their skill position players as you see it right now? 615-737-1045. And it's not job number 1 for this administration to figure out, but it's definitely up there priority-wise. There's no question the offensive line is the thing that they absolutely had to spend the most capital financially, draft-wise on. They have to figure out something. They have to have more than just one solution across 5 different positions and 4 in all likelihood that you're going to have to replace. Speaking of which, Bud, I told you Ben Jones was going to come in here and hang out with us at some point. Next week is when Ben is going to pop in. He's going to check his schedule and get back to me on what day we're going to hang out with Ben for about an hour in studio. But yeah, we're looking forward to that. It'll be a good time. So we'll keep you updated with that once we have a little more specifics on time and date. Steve in Nashville is next. Hey, Steve.
Buck, how you doing?
Good, bud.
I look what they've done in free agency. They're fixing the line, and if you listen to everything they say, they're going after 1 or 2 guys in with the 11th pick. I think it's either Jordan Addison from USC or it's the I can't even say his name, and Jackson Ngobo from Ohio State. I think it's pretty
Smith
good.
and Jigba.
There you go.
Okay.
But one of those 2 guys.
Good effort.
Going to pick up. I'd almost lay money on it.
I'm sorry, who was the first one?
Addison out of USC.
I don't think he's a first-round pick, do you? What's the evidence that he's a first-round pick?
Do I watch his tape?
I have. He was one of the best wide receivers. I don't mean to interrupt you, but there's no discussion around him being one of the top wide receivers. I mean, maybe one of the top wide receivers in this draft, but it's not a good wide receiver class. I'd be shocked.
Well, they're also talking about Will Levis and Anthony Richardson going in picks 1 through 7. Do you think either one of those 2 guys are in that top 7?
Oh, no. Sure, if you're in the right situation.
Way.
Sure. Oh, of course. If you're Seattle and you have Geno for 3 years and you take Richardson at 5, of course I think that's sensible.
I don't think that's sensible. But we can disagree to agree. Have a great day, bud.
Okay, buddy.
Good talking to you, bud.
Thanks for the call. What is illogical about Levis or Richardson going to a developmental situation? Jordan Addison is not being discussed as one of the top wide receivers in this class, really. I mean, maybe top 10, but we're talking about we're talking about maybe one wide receiver in the top 20 of this year's draft. I don't know that Jordan Addison belongs in that conversation. Now, you could say that Jalen Hyatt is in a similar situation, not for the same reasons, but maybe one of these guys, pro day or otherwise, wriggles their way back into the first round from potentially being a day 2 pick, a high day 2 pick. But this is not the wide receiver class to be overdrafting.
I think it's almost fruitless to sit here and project wide receivers in this draft as day 2, day 3 picks.
No, I think that's fair.
After Smith and Jigba, I think it's just going to be all over the place. Based on needs, based on teams liking that particular player for whatever reason, based on how they fall.
Once that seal gets broken on the wide receivers, you're just going to start seeing teams go for it, depending on how they feel about particular players as opposed to the position.
I wouldn't be shocked to see Jordan Addison, the 3rd receiver taken. I wouldn't be shocked to see him the 10th, 11th receiver taken.
I would be shocked to see him at 11, though. The way that the caller just projected.
At number 11 overall, yes.
That's. I think that was the
I think that's what he meant.
That's what caught me off guard. Let's go to Dante in Nashville next. Hey, Dante.
Hey, what's going on, Buck, man? Thank you for having me on.
Sure.
You know, it's something I think nobody's talking about, but I think is probably happening on the backside. I think the Titans are probably wheeling and dealing with Tannehill right now, trying to figure out if he can be a Brady-esque guy for a tenth of a second and consider what his career would look like if we actually could take some of his money and put some tools around here. At the end of the day, if he doesn't have receivers and enough linemen to keep him protected, there's nothing he can do. But I think that's going to be – everything is pivoting around what we can do with that guy.
So you're saying, Dante, just so I'm clear, you're saying that you think he's been approached already, it's just not out there?
No, I think the Titans are trying to get him to restructure that deal. They're putting some numbers up there. They're letting him see all these numbers come off the board. And we're trying to pressure him into restructuring his contract so we can use some of that money to build a full team. I don't care who you are. I think Tannehill recognizes he's on the last leg of his run right now. And he's got one chance. Either he's going to go for the Super Bowl or he's going to get away from the Titans. One or the other. We're not going to keep him too much longer after his contract anyway. But he has a choice. He can decide to put some money on the table so he can build a winning team. It can be selfish and keep everything.
No, it's not selfish, Dante. What's selfish about that? Tell me exactly what is selfish about somebody wanting to keep their finances right. That's where you lose me as soon as you start to pivot into like the morality stuff of that. You know what I'm saying?
Selfish. It is. I call it selfish when you don't think about what's best for your team, when you don't think about trying to build your legacy as a winning quarterback, putting a ring on your finger, putting a ring on your lineman's finger, telling all these people that doubted you that you got what it takes. That's when it's selfish. Because if you're only thinking about the dollar sign, then you're not thinking about winning.
Thanks for the call, buddy. Appreciate it. 615-737-1045. Yeah, I think I hate that logic. I hate that logic. One, they haven't approached him about a pay cut yet. And I don't know if that's like a waiting game the way that Dante is alleging, the way that the way that I took his point anyway is that they are kind of, they're waiting to see how the quarterback market plays out around it and then going to approach Ryan Tannehill about a pay cut is kind of the direction I think he was going. But no, here's the biggest misconception. They don't care about your team the way that you do. They don't have to. I'm talking about the players. One team wins the Super Bowl at the end of every year. You know who doesn't? 30 to 31 other rosters with a bunch more players on those 31 other rosters. Man, the idea of putting in front of them legacy and making it seem like it's this end-all, be-all, like presenting NFL players with ultimatum, your money or your legacy, think about it. Man, bleep that. Take the money and run.
The logic of putting your team before yourself is flawed, too, because no team in the history of professional sports has ever put the individual in front of the team.
That's what I'm saying.
The team's looking out for their interest. The individual's looking out for his interest.
The sport is a meat grinder. Get the bleep out of here with putting yourself or putting the team before yourself. For what? For that slim chance that you might just be the team that's good and also lucky enough to make the Super Bowl run? Nah. Not in the real world, kids. Under no circumstances. That is the most fairy tale bleep that I've ever heard in my life. And listen, some people do it, and the Brady comparison was made. I don't know what Lauren Tannehill does for a living, but I know she's not pulling in $78 million a year the way that Giselle was. So Tom can afford to take it easy from time to time. We got another free agent wide receiver off the board. Why don't we tease that? We'll take more of your phone calls. We'll tell you what's going on in the NFL and if the Titans are involved in this wide receiver free agency. We can also discuss the idea of Ryan Tannehill taking a pay cut and how nonsensical that is at this point from a variety of different angles. 615-737-1045 is the number. I'm Buck Rising. It's 1045 The Zone.
It is 12:01. Good afternoon from the Superbook.com Sports Desk. I'm Lucas Panzica. Two more free agent wide receivers off the board as Nelson Aguilar signs a one-year deal with the Baltimore Ravens and DJ Chark reportedly signing a one-year deal with the Carolina Panthers. Both moves reported by Jordan Schultz. Sweet 16 action continues in the NCAA tournament tonight, as yesterday saw Tennessee eliminated by FAU, a 62-55 final. One seed Alabama takes on San Diego State at 5:30. Miami and Houston will tip off at 6:15, and another 5-versus-1 matchup. And 15-seed Princeton tries to stay alive against Creighton at 8 p.m. Xavier in Texas will tip off at 8:45. You can hear all the Westwood One coverage right here on The Zone tonight and this weekend with the Elite Eight. For all your foundation repair and waterproofing needs, visit USSTN.com. Breaking news at once in your home for the Titans and Vols. This is 104.5 The Zone.
It's a final hour on this Friday. We're fired up about it. We're happy to have you guys here with us for the final stretch. 1 o'clock is when you are stuck with us until then. We'll turn things over to Blaine and Mickey. 3HL after that. Vols get bounced from the Sweet 16. We'll talk about Rick Barnes' legacy here in just about 20 minutes from now. But in the meantime, we're talking about the Titans and kind of the strategy or lack thereof that seems to be outlined by the addressing of the skill position players. Now, you heard Lucas mention in his update, DJ Chark just signed a one-year deal to join the Detroit Lions. And at this point, the names that you are starting to see come off the wide receiver free agency board, you're getting into the ground where it's just kind of like, okay, whatever. Oh, excuse me, the Panthers are signing former Lions wide receiver DJ Chark. Should have said that.
You said the other way around?
I said he's signing a deal with the Lions. Yes, he's signing a deal with the Panthers. So the Panthers making moves. Again, a one-year deal. The value of it I have not seen reported just yet, but once we have contract details, we will fill you in. I'm curious to know why so many wide receivers are doing these one-year deals. Because as far as I can tell, Jacoby Myers is the only one who got a 3-year that I've seen. No, I'm sorry. Juju had a 3-year deal, I think, with the Patriots too. But there's not a ton of those. Like it's a lot of like prove it loaner type situations. With a lot of this middle class that seems to exist with the 2023 wide receiver free agents. So, why the Titans are or are not involved at this point or have not been reported around any of these moves, you can debate that at this point, but it is curious to see kind of the structure. So Allen Lazard got a 4-year, 3-year deals for Juju, Jacoby Myers, and Adam Thielen. Robert Woods, Darius Slayton, and Deontay Hardy all got 2-year deals, and the rest are loaners. 1 year 4.7 for Paris Campbell, 1 year 3.5 for Braxton Berrios, 1 year 3.25 for Nelson Aguilar, and on down the list. NWI, by the way, is being reported by Spotrac to be 1 year, $1.26 million for those of you paying attention to the Titans salary cap situation.
I guess that's technically a free agent signing.
NWI?
Yeah.
It's a free agent retention.
Yeah.
I guess.
He was a free agent, and then they signed him.
Are you about to justify to the listening audience that their free agency signing at wide receiver was to retain NWI? Is that the case that you would like to make?
No. I mean, at this point, who's the best option out there?
Oh, I think you could go back and forth with any of these guys as kind of like, replacement level. Not any of these guys, but replacement level players at this point, right? Like I don't think you're gonna clamor for. I don't think you're gonna bang on the table necessarily for Randall Cobb being a substantially better signing at this point than Jarvis Landry, are you? Even they're not the same players, but you see what I'm saying? Like it's just kind of name X at the wide receiver spot now. Now, again, the need is for a veteran wide receiver who can come in, stabilize the youth movement that the Titans currently have, where the veteran presence at present is NWI, and kind of show these young guys, where the rest of them are 23 or younger, how to basically exist and operate in the NFL. Some kind of guidance. And, Nick is fine. It's not like Nick's not capable of something like that. I think this will be NWI's 5th NFL season. It's kind of crazy to think about, coming in as a undrafted rookie. So maybe that's enough. But I don't necessarily think it's enough, Now, the names are Kenny Golladay, Robbie Anderson, Randall Cobb, Marvin Jones, Julio.
Sammy Watkins.
Oh, I was giving you some space to maybe do the thing.
Forget that exists. Feels like so long ago.
No, you don't forget. You don't forget it exists when it's convenient for you. and kill Harry, who's 25 years old and nobody wants. So, any number of ways you could address this. It's probably not going to. Nothing at this point is going to excite or make the Titans fan base feel good necessarily about what they add, depending on what the deal is structured, the length, things of this nature. But it's just kind of a bunch of names out there. Some you've seen already, some you haven't. T.Y. Hilton, no thank you. Scotty Miller, I'm good. Marcus Johnson, you've already done before. No thank you on the soft tissue injuries. Like all this kind of stuff, right? It's just regurgitating names on a list.
I'm on the DeMarcus Robinson train still.
No, I think that's fine.
At this point, a guy who's a veteran receiver in this league, not 30 yet, but adds that speed element and has just been quietly productive as a wide receiver 3 throughout the course of his career. And that's what you need here. You don't need a wide receiver 2. You can hopefully find that in the draft.
Who you've just described? The guy that they signed. NWI.
NWI,
I so badly want the free agent strategy to be, NWI, one year, 1.26. You can't be mad at us for that.
But Mike Vrabel talks about speed. Very rarely are we the faster football team out there.
And that's not a helpful speed.
You just imagine something will be done to address that at the wide receiver position other than the upcoming draft.
Yeah, because, but like who's a burner? Like, no, there's not anybody who distinguishes themselves. Maybe at one point, Marquise Goodwin. Wasn't Marquise Goodwin like a track star?
I mean, Robbie Anderson at one point.
What is Robbie Anderson, 28, 29?
29.
Let me not speak out of turn because I did not watch Robbie Anderson much when he got traded from Carolina to Arizona. So I don't want to speak ignorantly about where his skill set might have diminished or might not have yet. I haven't seen enough of him. But yeah, is Robbie Anderson the most inspiring signing that they could make at this point? Is that what you're trying to tell me, based on the need?
No, I didn't say that.
No. But I'm saying I'm not
Chosen Anderson. AJ says in the YouTube chat. He is technically correct. His name is Chosen.
And Shaq Barrett. No, Shaq Leonard. Damn it!
There is a Shaq Barrett.
Yeah, I know.
That guy is out there.
It's going to drive me crazy. Now, Richie James, I guess, is kind of this because he's a returner. And Richie James would be fine. That's a former MTSU product. He's been a productive returner. Yeah, not quite a outright productive receiver. And he's been in a good offense. So you want to grade on that curve, I guess. You don't want to rob him of production that he's been able to come out with, but it's not necessarily like Richie James is probably the kind of market deal that you're looking at right now.
It's just if they're going to bring in a free agent wide receiver, surely it needs to be someone that checks that box.
Speed.
The speed element.
And there's only so many of those names left.
Right.
Mark calling us from Bowling Green, Kentucky. What's up, Mark?
Hey, I've got a question, and I was hoping you could educate me on this. So, a guaranteed contract, and I'm just going to throw Herbert out there. Let's say Herbert plays for the Titans, and he's up for a contract. A guaranteed contract for $50 million a year for 10 years. Can't they extend that like they did in baseball to that one player that I believe it was, I can't remember the team, but they made it like a 30-year contract, but for a certain amount of money, and spread it out so that way the cap hit wouldn't be as bad.
So you're asking, can you just extend? What I guess is the context? Like somebody like Lamar, Deshaun Watson. I know you used Herbert as the example, but I guess what's the genesis of the question, Mark? Like, what's got you curious about that? So I can kind of work off that a little better, if you don't mind.
Well, I'm just wondering because everybody talks about the cap and how bad it is, and they can't get the players that they want. Well, why not just extend and the only reason I said Herbert because he's coming up.
So like Titans roster, you mean like Derrick Henry? Derrick Henry's got a big cap hit. He's in the final year of his deal. So you're saying extend Derrick Henry just as an example, not necessarily specific to the player. Yeah. But if they extended Derrick Henry, they could bring the cap hit down. That's what you're saying?
Right, for like 10 years, but he's not going to play 10 years, but it's guaranteed that much money.
Okay, I understand. Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can do that. You can do that. But guaranteed money typically involves the restructure element of it, and the restructure thing is what's got you in cap hell right now. So you can maneuver around things. You can use tools like extensions, voidable years, to bring down a cap hit at any given point. But again, the bill does come due eventually. It's just how do you want to kind of disperse that bill around? Now, it's coming due in a big way for the Titans, where they've cut a lot of salary. They're in great position for 2024. But right now, everything that's still in place is kind of a thorn in their side. It's pretty inhibiting. Where the cap space in total that they have right now is about $8 million, and in reality, it's less than half of that because of all the different things that you don't necessarily think about when you're playing armchair GM. When any of us are playing armchair GM, the different allotments you'll need for players in the season because of injuries. The practice squad pool, and then, of course, money to sign your rookie draft class. 615-737-1045 is how you can jump in on the discussion. We can talk more about the Titans and also get into a bit about Rick Barnes' legacy with the Vols losing at Madison Square Garden last night, short of the Elite Eight, their season ending in a Sweet 16 run, a loss against FAU. We'll discuss that in the final hour. I'm Buck Rising. It's 104.5 The Zone. So I got a gut feeling. And that's about the least analytical way that I'm willing to discuss something. Normally, I hate gut feeling conversations. But do you ever have something in your sports life that you just can't help feel a certain kind of way about? You just can't shake it. Maybe that's the University of Tennessee going into the game against FAU last night. You just felt like, okay, we haven't seen the Vols kind of offensive deficiency issues, the inconsistencies. Olivier Cumwa coming off a performance where he had 27 points against Duke, was absolutely pivotal. And then, you're going into the FAU game and you're saying, yeah, but just doesn't feel great. Yeah, but I haven't seen them do the thing that they did down the stretch in conference play, which is just sputter and stall out offensively in ways that you're having Vescovi chuck up threes, desperate in the second half, trying to shoot yourself back in after you've largely played yourself out. That's kind of the way that I feel about the Titans for no particular reason. I don't know why I decided to do gut feeling type stuff on March the 24th. Pre-draft, post-draft free agency, pre-training camp, all of it. And Lucas was kind of chastising me about this, yesterday, the day before, about doing a conversation like this? Just feels dirty to do it before you have really any kind of clear sense of what the roster in its entirety is going to look like?
Well, this time last year, A.J. Brown was still a Titan.
Yeah. And
then weeks later, he wasn't.
No, that matters.
So, yes, I do think it is a fruitless endeavor on March 24th to talk about, I don't think they're going to be any good.
No, but it's not. I'm not trying to ascribe any meaning to it, I'm just I get a lot of questions, I think, as anybody does in a business like ours about, hey, how you feel about the team? Like that's the conversation that I'm most often greeted with. It's not, hey, how about this weather? It's not, oh, how about that traffic? It's, hey, how about the Titans? What do you think? Okay. And every time somebody asks me these questions and I say, well, free agency, they did what they did. They've got only so much money that they can actually allocate towards these things, and they spread it across the board. That's nice. That's practical. It's pragmatic. Yeah, but what are we doing in the draft? Well, I don't know. They've got so many needs. They've got 6 draft picks. I don't know. And then, ultimately, I have to keep myself from saying it to people because I don't know how they're going to respond. Yeah, I think they're going to suck in 2023. And it's not like I'm being provoked to that place. It's just I don't know why I can't shake the feeling that I don't think this football team is going to be very competitive at all heading into the season. And I think, we had a conversation earlier with Slay about the way that Tennessee basketball season ended. And what Slay's analysis was, in part, was I'm not a fan of the moving the goalpost type conversations. If you had to come into 2022/23 with a baseline of this is a Sweet 16 Tennessee Vols basketball team. And if you'd have said, well, when their season starts in October, it'll end on March the 23rd in a Sweet 16 game at Madison Square Garden. If they didn't tell you all the things that it took to get Tennessee to that point, all the peaks and valleys of the season, would you in October have said, yeah, Sweet 16, that sounds right. That sounds like a successful Tennessee basketball season, which kind of ignores the journey that it took you to get there. So I'm kind of looking at the Titans through the same prism. Now, maybe there can be things that change the discourse around it largely. Maybe I'll decide that I need to move the goalpost at some point around the Titans discussion. But I don't know why, for the life of me, I just can't shake the feeling that I just think they're going to be terrible.
Don't we? I wish Slay was still here to talk about this, because don't we get to move the goalposts with new information, though? Didn't we move the goalposts on Tennessee football last season when you went in saying, 8-9 wins would be a huge success? And then midseason, you're talking about, this team expects to be in the playoff when all they have to do is beat South Carolina and Vanderbilt, and they are all but in.
I hope that's
moving the goalpost.
I hope that's the way that people have these discussions. I hope that your opinion You're not hammered for being a flip-flopper or whatever you want to call it. Oh, you're changing your tone. You're taking a different position than you did on, 6 months ago. Well, yeah, because I have new information at my disposal, and that I think you should adjust it. But I'm going in with a baseline of 2023. So maybe this is my baseline, right? Maybe my baseline for the Tennessee Titans in 2023 is I think they're going to out loud suck. And I wish that I could tell you why. I feel like we don't have conversations like this. Like, I'm not trying to do a hot take thing. I'm not trying to piss people off. None of this. But, like, the more that I get asked this question this offseason, what about the Titans? How you feel about the Titans? The Titans going to be any good this year? Titans getting Lamar? Titans trading for DeAndre Hopkins? I don't know. I think they're going to stink.
I feel like this is you doing what you proclaim to hate, though.
No.
I feel like this is your version of record predictions.
No, that's yeah.
You might as well have just said. You just said without saying it. Yeah, I think the Titans are going to be 5-12, 6-11.
I do hate record predictions.
That's basically what you just did. You just didn't put a number on it.
Yeah, but okay. So let me do a record prediction. People love that stuff. That's the thing. It's probably the least popular thing that we do or don't do is we won't give people record predictions, and that's what they want to do
because they are fruitless. And it is one thing that I agree with you on, that they are just a waste of energy. But I feel like that's a version of what you're doing here.
I'm not trying to. It's just I've had this. I get posed this question literally every time I talk to somebody, whether I'm meeting new people or whether it's the same people that I've seen, time in and time out. Whether I'm going to the place that I get my coffee every morning, or I'm having a useless conversation where you're just trying to make small talk at the gym or something like that. People are, what about the Titans? And I've just so often been asked that question the last couple of weeks where I'm getting to the point where I'm saying, yeah, I don't feel good. I feel terrible. I don't see how there's anything meaningfully competitive about the Titans in 2023. And then it's going to turn into a full-fledged sports talk radio. You're wrong. No, you're wrong discussion. And I hate that. I hate it. But the more that people keep asking me the question, I feel like I have to give them an honest answer, right? Is that unfair?
No, it's an honest answer. And you say setting a baseline.
Yeah.
Because you're right. I think we should get to move the goalpost with new information. The expectations should change with new information. But with all that said, I feel like it's fruitless to set a baseline here on March 24th, 2023. That doesn't make sense to me. When what we're looking at, the Tennessee Titans right now, not inspiring. I agree with you, especially on offense. It's not going to be the roster we see going into training camp or going into week one.
Like I said, this is the most hot takey thing I think we've ever done as a show, other than me saying that one time that I'd rather have women's basketball than Major League Baseball in Nashville. People didn't like that.
Which I still agree with, by the
way.
I
do too. And it's like an accidental hot take. Like we just tripped in style. I thought I said something that like a lot of people would agree with, and they said, "No, you idiot."
Did we ever put that to a poll? Would you rather have WNBA or MLB?
Well, no, I tweeted it, and I got dragged across the surface of the sun. And by the way, I stand by it.
I do too.
I still feel exactly the same way.
I would love to just make a cutting jab in refuting that statement, but I completely agree.
Anyway. So, like I said, no particular reason other than I'm just tired of asking the question and kind of like dancing around it because people want to answer, When they ask you that question, they want to know sports from the sports guy. And so I've just gotten to the point where, I come out and say, yeah, I think they're going to be awful. It's just awful.
But you don't know.
I have no idea.
That's what would be honest to say, I don't know.
Is this how the hot takers do it? Have I been missing out this whole time? Like, this seems like a lot more fun. I just throw stuff out there and run away. It's like what you do. It's like what you do when I don't like the way that you phrased a poll. Just roll a grenade into my mentions and run.
But you say that like I do it intentionally. Like
I do absolutely do that.
I don't do anything intentionally on your Twitter account. So whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. Well, that's the lack of care I think that is more concerning than anything.
Yeah.
So anyway, we'll it's completely useless. You're right. It's completely useless. But it's been a question that I've been asked enough as I watch pro days and talk about different draft situations and all these different things. And it's probably the wrong thing for me to do, right? When you talk about biases that are ingrained, like I'm going in with the bias, it seems, and I don't know how to necessarily shake it. Like I don't think anything that they're going to do or anything that they could do would drastically alter my position about the Titans unless it's something completely beyond the pale, like we're talking about with the Lamar Jackson trade, which is, I would view skeptically at most. But, It's just it's something that I think is fascinating to kind of see how it plays out. But I guess the reason why I bring it up is it's the first time that I've felt that way. Like, I've never been in the middle of an offseason just completely like, I don't necessarily know how much they're going to be able to do that's going to change my opinion about them being meaningfully competitive in 2023. This is the first season in a long season where I don't know why. It's just been kind of hovering over everything that we do and all the discussions in the back of my head. I'm like, but does it how much further is this actually going to get them from where they're ultimately going to end up being? It's a fruitless conversation for the most part, but just one that struck me. 615-737-1045 is how you jump in. Willie in Murfreesboro next. Hey, Willie.
Hey, appreciate it, Buck. Thanks for taking my call. I was just following up on the gentleman's call a few minutes ago about trying to extend out X number of years on a contract like Bobby Bonilla, who's still getting paid until 30 for $1 million from
Thank
the
you
Mets
for
each
bringing
year
up the name. I couldn't find it in the back of my head. Bobby Bonilla.
Yes, sir. And every July 1st, he gets $1 million until 2030. But the reason it doesn't work in the NFL, that you can only take a contract out as long as what's remaining on the CBA. So that's why you saw a few years ago Patrick Mahomes have a 10-year deal because it was the first year of the CBA. So just wanted to give you that tidbit.
Yeah, thank you for the additional context, Willie. We appreciate it. 615-737-1045 is how you join the discussion. A lot of interaction via Zone TV as well. Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch is where you get involved. Vince Ash Brown says Tannehill gets released without trade and Vrabel names Malik the starter. Cue the meltdown in 3, 2. Yeah, I don't think there's a scenario where that exists. And we had Rand Carthon on the show. I asked him specifically about the idea of tanking, competitive, passive, aggressive, or otherwise. And, that idea was flatly met with, can you imagine me walking in, even if that was who I am as a general manager, imagine me walking into Mike Vrabel's office and telling him that. And so, yeah, of course. I mean, there's too many people's jobs and families, family livings tied up in the idea of tanking so casually. And I'm not talking about like an active tank. I'm just looking at a variety of different components on the roster and all the questions that they still have. And, generally understanding that it's going to be the same offensive philosophy as long as Derrick Henry exists on the roster, and you hope for some tendency changes, some additional creativity, some things that they lacked in the last calendar year or in the last calendar season that we've seen them get away from Arthur Smith through the Todd Downing era, and now we'll see what Tim Kelly can do. Moves may come. We may see wide receivers cut in the coming weeks and months. We may see roster or not cap casualties, but like training camp casualties. We may see them make additional transactions that truly do make a difference, even if it's not the sexiest names. But that's, like I said, it's a gut feeling type of situation. And all the good that gut feeling type situations have as far as predicting what an outcome of a season will be, because of course we're not doing that. John in Franklin is next. Hey, John.
Hey, Buck. I see that people talk about Lamar coming to Titans. I put something on Facebook about it and a puke emoji because I'm just sick of that. When is the first time the Titans have ever gone and spent that much money to garner someone? Never. They're not going to. It's still the Adams family. I think they've got a certain amount of money they're going to spend, and that's what they're going to spend. And it's been proven year after year after year of Washington the entire time they've been. It's just what they do.
Well, so I guess can I ask you a question, John? Because they've had a couple. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Can I get this one point in?
Yeah, sure.
How do all these other teams get the players they get? Kansas City, the Philadelphia. How do they go? They restructure. They work the contracts out to where it works. How come the Titans can't do that? No, I'm sorry. That's all I wanted to say.
No. They tried that, right? That's the reason why Tannehill and Henry have the blow and Kevin Byard have the hits that they do, because they tried that with Julio Jones and it blew up in their face. Like, they tried to do the thing. It failed. Right, John?
the other side of that is they always go after these guys that are done. There were bad people said that Julio Jones, he would quit. He would only play at the big games. Did you notice when he played for the Titans, he tried to play in the big games? Other games, not so much.
Well, they tried to save him up so he could play in the big games. I was there watching Julio every day at practice, and I feel like you could see, his hamstrings explode 3 times a day. But I listen, there's nothing I can do to change people's perceptions about the Titans being cheap other than tell you to look at the contract situations that they've handed out. Kevin Byard was top of market. Ryan Tannehill was a big contract. Derrick Henry got a big payday, even if it wasn't top of market. Lawan reset the left tackle market. Like this narrative about the Adams family and cheapness doesn't exist anymore. Bud Dupree. How pissed were you guys about the Bud Dupree contract? That's a massive contract.
You can't say the narrative doesn't exist anymore, though, when we're always getting calls about it.
No, but in reality,
because the ones
the narrative exists,
right?
The reality and the narrative are two different things.
But you said the narrative doesn't exist. No, the narrative is what does exist.
Apologies, then I misstated that. But I'm never going to be able to convince John, no matter how many different contracts I pull up, that the Adams family under Amy Adams Strunk is no longer the kind of cheap organization that he associates with her father, right? Because I'm sure that was true about Bud. A completely different world. Now, again, the Titans are not a cash flush organization just by measuring it up against Jerry Jones and Stan Kroenke and Walmart money with the Broncos and all these different things. Yeah, you're right. They're not that. But they're not Mark Davis, broke as hell trying to trade away Khalil Mack and Amari Cooper because you don't have cash in escrow to pay them on second contracts, even though that's exactly what you're trying to get out of first-round picks that way. So, I mean, there's only so much you can do to kind of, you can present people with information. How they discern it, how they disseminate it is entirely up to them. But that doesn't exist at this point. I mean, Jarrell Casey was a big-ass contract. Like John Robinson's first extension of a player there. I don't know how many more of those you need to see before that changes the way that it's discussed. But I think that's a hamster wheel argument. Speaking of hamster wheel arguments, what the hell do I do with Rick Barnes at this stage? We had callers bring up, Vols get bounced from the Sweet 16 yesterday. It's not, I don't want to say that it's not unexpected when you're a 5.5-point favorite, but it did not feel like the results of that caught anybody off guard. And Rick Barnes, again, with maybe the first 2 comments that I walked in here was one said, "Good morning, guys," and the other one said, "Fire Rick Barnes" right under it. It's the first thing that I walked in here to.
Oh, on the YouTube chat.
Yeah,
okay.
Because the YouTube chat starts.
I thought you were talking about walking into this building.
Oh, yeah. It's not just like places where I get coffee and, my gym where people, melt your face off with sports takes. It's physically while I'm walking in the door too. No, for whatever reason, I don't know the mechanics of how this works, but the YouTube chat starts before the actual show starts. So immediately the comments are starting to fill in, which we're grateful for. Thank you guys for hanging out there and interacting as much as you do. But the second comment that just hits me in the face like a dead fish is "Fire Rick Barnes." I don't know how. Again, it's almost like a different kind of a narrative discussion, right? Titans are a cheap organization. Yeah, but they paid Taylor Lewan, Kevin Byard, Derrick Henry, Ryan Tannehill, all these big money contracts. Are you sure? Yeah, but the Titans never pay anybody. That's the Adams family. Okay. Fire Rick Barnes. He doesn't coach well in March. He's a choker. Yeah, but they've made the Sweet 16. He's a very established coach. They've got more 25-win seasons under Barnes than they do in the entire rest of the history of the program. Would you rather be them or would you rather be Kentucky, who wanes in and out of years of competitiveness? Or would you rather play it steady, make the tournament, and then, results come what may? I don't know how to dispel either of those narratives effectively. All I know is that there's a contingent of the fan base that wants to turn last night into an indictment of Rick Barnes. And I don't know how you can feasibly do that when Rick Barnes is as big a reason why that team is in the position that they are in as anybody else associated with that program right now. So you can have the fire Rick Barnes conversation if you like. You can say this program deserves better. You can say, oh, this is where we top out every year. You can be a narrative type person. But the narrative type person, I think, often ignores they get set in their own preconceived notions about this thing rather than adjust to the new information that we're talking about. There's been new information that's come in on Rick Barnes over the course of the past couple of years, even if the tournament results are what they are. We understand that the tournament and the regular season in college basketball are two completely different beasts. Tennessee seems to excel far more at one than they do at the other in these 8 seasons now, having concluded last night under Rick Barnes.
Ironically, the one where it's harder to have consistent, sustained success.
Yes, agreed. It is more difficult to do what Rick Barnes is doing, I think, than what Cal has done at Kentucky, which is, you'll take the down years where you have them, you'll cite inexperience by the players, you'll say, we'll have a really young roster, but then you do the exact same thing with the number 1 recruiting class, and you're right back in the mix, baby. But it took you maybe a year or 2 to get back there.
I saw your colleagues at A to Z Sports actually make a great comparison to this.
What do you mean actually, like you're surprised?
No, that's not what I meant.
Which one?
But Charlie Burris and Zach Reagan.
Well, if Charlie made a coherent analysis of anything, then it is surprising because Charlie is one of the most insane, irrational sports fans I know. But yeah, anyway, go ahead.
They made the comparison of Mark Richt at Georgia.
Ooh, I like that.
And it makes a ton of sense. I'll compare a 10-win season in college football to a 25-win season in college basketball. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Maybe not a 20-win season, but a 25-win season.
Yeah.
Mark Richt was churning out 10-win seasons consistently at Georgia. They were always in that conversation. You knew that the floor was almost 9 wins.
But the 2 losses,
Right. But there was just that big old hump in front of him that was winning a national championship. He won a couple of SEC titles at Georgia. He consistently had them pushing to play for SEC championships, to be in the conversation to play for a national championship. Just kept coming up short. And after a long enough period of time, there's a big enough sample size to say, okay, if it hasn't happened yet, who's to say it's going to happen? Great culture. Everybody that works for him, plays for him, loves him. Just couldn't get over that last big hump. And Georgia is the type of football program to say, well, okay, the expectation is to get over that hump. Is Tennessee basketball the type of program to sit there and say, no, the expectation is Final Fours and national championships? That's where I think where Tennessee fans will start to agree and disagree with each other. That's where it starts to get polarizing. When you boil down what the actual expectation is at Tennessee. Is it to be relevant, to win 20, 25 games, to push for SEC titles, and then be in the tournament every year and hopefully make a run? Or is it national titles? I don't know that it's national titles. It's great to come out and say that, but I don't know that that's realistic for a school like Tennessee. There's not a lot of schools that can say that for football and basketball. In fact, I don't know that there's any.
Alabama.
Yeah, go ahead and tell me Alabama's expectation for the basketball program is to win national titles.
It is now, probably.
This season, yes, it is. But Alabama never fired a basketball coach because they didn't think he could win them a national championship.
Sure. I get what you're saying. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. Jump in if you like. We'll do some polls. We'll wrap it up for the week. Get you over to Blaine and Mickey coming up next. Wrapping it up on this Friday. Thanks for hanging out with us all week long. We are so grateful that you guys choose to spend as much time with us as you do. We're not sure what's wrong with you that you choose to spend as much time with us as you do, but we're grateful either way. Last call for phone calls, 615-737-1045. Jump in there if you want before we do some polls here in just a second. Sweet 16 games on the horizon. I think, as far as local rooting interest is concerned, are we down to Alabama and that's what's left?
Yeah, that's the last SEC team left.
I say rooting interest tongue-in-cheek, but just given, geographically and the...
Well, there's a lot of Bama fans in Nashville.
No, that's where I was going. A lot of Alabama fans here locally. So, still the opportunity is the number one overall seed to get things done. San Diego State is what lies between them and the Elite Eight.
Surely we've seen the best game of the Sweet 16, though.
Oh, last night, Michigan State and
Kansas State.
Kansas State.
That's an all-time classic NCAA tournament game. All time.
That's one of the best I know we do this recency bias every year, and every championship is the best championship game and all these different things.
That is not recency bias.
It's one of I don't. It's tough to get me to stand up in my living room and audibly yell things at the television. I don't get into games quite like that. But I was on my feet for not just the overtime period, shot after shot on both sides, and just absolutely Noel taking over.
Oh, my goodness.
The way that he did. And we've seen him do that a couple of times in this tournament, but my God, was that fun.
The fake, and Jerome Tang said after the game, Kansas State head coach, that the fake play call argument was not a planned thing. Right?
It's going to happen.
So the sequence where Noel comes into front court, it's during overtime. There's 2 minutes left. The fact that they did this with 2 minutes left in overtime, and he starts shouting back and forth with Tang like they're confused about the play call, and then I can't remember who it was that snuck down the baseline from the corner, and then Noel just flicks the ball from 40 feet to the basket. And it's a behind-the-back alley-oop dunk. And but Tang said, no, that was legitimately, they were having a discussion about the play call mid-play, and then that connection they just saw a quick opportunity and made it happen. But that was just an all-time performance by Noel.
Yeah, they were all. That was the best of them for sure, and that you can debate the merit of in your lifetime how much fun that game was compared to others. But I do think that the only dud was Arkansas UConn, just because that wasn't competitive. Basically, from the under 12-minute timeout in the first half on, UConn really ran away with it, out-physicaled them, and sent Arkansas and a shirtless Eric Musselman home packing. Polls?
Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. The polls have closed and the votes have been tallied. It's the segment where bias takes over and nuance goes to die. Now, here's your favorite Buck Rising Show correspondent, Lucas Pan. Make that poll Zika.
Presented by Two Rivers Ford, who sells below MSRP on all non-specialty new Fords. Did Tennessee basketball choke last night? 87% say yes, they did.
You have to have expectations to win, to actually choke. 5.5-point favorites. Maybe you expected them to win. Maybe Vegas expected them to win, but I sure as hell didn't.
Well,
I don't think I'd consider it a choke if I thought you were going to lose from the out.
You can expect them to win, but still not be surprised if they lose. I think that was the mindset for almost every Tennessee fan on the planet last night.
Fair. You talk about moving the goalpost. My expectation after a 5-point halftime lead was that they would be able to close that game out with the best defense and most efficient defense in the country, and they did not.
How would you describe the Uros Plavsic experience? Jeremy says, glad it's over. Tennessee Ed says, disappointing. Chris says, cheated. I wanted to see him hip check Noel into the upper deck. Oh, man. A 5'8" Noel against 7-foot Uros Plavsic. I don't think that's who Uros would put a target on the back of, Marquise Noel. I would hope not. But yeah, that flagrant foul by Uros, that's just stupid. I mean, that's not setting the tone. That's just dumb.
Well, and it sent Vol Twitter spiraling because they thought there was some kind of conspiracy because the television broadcast didn't have the replay available.
Showed the wrong play.
At the exact right time. They had to go back to it later, and then everybody saw the foul. It was like, oh, yeah, that's a flagrant.
That was hilarious. The collective outrage, and rightfully so, because if that was what they were referencing, then that would have been an awful flagrant foul call. And then it turned quickly to, oh, yeah, that's a flagrant. Damn it, Uros. What is your gut feeling on the 2023 Titans? Darren says winning back the division. Alex says gut feeling they will exceed expectations as they are accustomed to, but will still fall short of being a legit contender due to lack of talent. Goody says he thinks it's going to be a long season. Timmy saying 10 or 11 wins. Tyler says it's going to be ugly. All over the place.
Yeah, that's what March 24th is. And again, it's just kind of like I think it's okay to take the temperature every once in a while. My temperature today on March 24th, prior to the draft and everything that comes after the draft, is I think this team is going to suck, but I have no idea how this is going to play out. We'll see.
Which Ohio State prospect would you rather the Titans draft with the 11th overall pick? 54% say Jackson Smith and Jigba. 46% say tackle Paris Johnson.
Nope, Paris Johnson Jr. Give me the tackle at 11. He's not going to be there. He's going to go to Chicago at 9. It almost seems inevitable, but we'll see. Those the polls?
Those are the polls.
Excellent. That's the show. Blaine and Mickey got you for the next 2 hours, 3HL on after that. I'm going to check in with Blaine and Mickey about 2:30. So we'll talk some more Titans content and conversation there. Have a great weekend, and I will see you Sunday night on A to Z Sports Primetime.